Hey there, and welcome to That Independent Streak. I'm Wendy Campbell, and you are in the right place. If you are at that point in your life where you've lived a little bit of life, maybe you've had some kids, had a career, maybe you had some more kids, had another career, these things happen. This is the place where we're kind of coming together with the intention to really build a bigger tribe, to start talking about the things that really matter, the things that you don't hear, those conversations that you don't have every day, but maybe you should. Now, my guest today is David Bernstein. He's the founder of Life Force Project and Well Designed. He's a connector of humans. I mean, what more can you say to that? All these people looking for and leaning into their personal visions to establish a valuable and authentic impact. That's a big, heavy load, but he's the kind of guy who can do it. Now, he's curating some amazing retreats for the individuals, but also helping leaders in the community, the global community, to really come together and really enhance their workplace with the intention of connections and inspiring a fuller life of true meaning. He's great. Before we jump in, make sure you check it out. You can find all the information about me, about him, all of the things that he's doing, all of the links to all of the projects on that independentstreakpodcast.com. You can also find him in the show notes. I try to keep everything there nice and easy for you so you don't even have to dig that hard. I definitely love to hear what you think about the show after you've listened to it all too, because that means a lot to me. Our conversations cover it all. Now we start with his story and then we go into and dive deeper in on all those things that cause a pivot, the things that you intend and the things that you don't intend. Sometimes things happen. A great soul. He's a great storyteller. One of the best, David Bernstein. David.
Hi,
Hi. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Are you in Denver today? Where are you? Where are you
In my home
joining?
in Lyons, Colorado.
Nice. Nice. That's a beautiful area. I love it up there.
Yeah. Just moved here a little earlier this year, late spring. So loving it up here for sure.
I feel like I've been snooping on you a little bit. I was listening to another podcast that you had done, talking about your place up in Lyons, and I want to dive into that a little bit here in just a few and talk about that because it sounds like a
Cool.
really special place.
Yeah, I'd love to share.
Awesome. Awesome. So I do like to start a little bit with stories. I think setting the stage for people, and I'm a big fan of the storyteller anyway. But I think giving people a little bit of insight into who you are and how you came to Life Force and how that experience evolved for you is always really a good place to kind of set the stage for the rest of the conversation. Do you mind going back and I don't need you to go back into your early childhood years, but go back a little bit to, how you came to kind of find this space in your heart and drive towards it.
Yeah, well, I definitely attribute most of it, if not all of it, to synchronicity. You know, I'm a believer that things unfold as they're supposed to, even though we don't necessarily see those things happening or even believe they can.
Right.
Um, there's, you know, we fall into trust and things kind of unfold for us. And sometimes we just don't see it coming. So I definitely was caught off guard. Um, and I will take you to I feel like the best place to start the story is late so middle mid 2008 year, right before the financial crisis. At the time, I was working in finance on the real estate side, um, doing well in my career. That was about the only thing I was doing well at, though. Physically, I wasn't in great health. My marriage was on the rocks, and I was lost in the lucrative quest or the quest for a lucrative, successful uh, career. Um, and uh, the 2008 crash, the financial crisis, kind of came about quickly. So it was kind of like that happened really fast. My marriage, which was unraveling, and I didn't even realize it, fell apart pretty much at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I identified with as a man in his late 20s, mid to late 20s, kind of fell apart. So there was a tragedy there. There was crisis. And Um, that was really the impetus of the beginning of Life Force. That's where it all started. That was where I kind of had this fork in the road. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what do I do? And I actually did not. I was kept on at the firm I was working with. They laid off 50% of the team, the staff, and kept me on. So it was really an interesting kind of choice because I could have stayed, but I didn't. I was cracked wide open and I couldn't be myself there. There was something that had to be explored and healed, and another kind of path showed up for me. Uh, so, despite the fact that the world was financially on fire, um, we were in crisis mode. Uh, I had the opportunity to work through my marriage with my ex. I chose another path. I kind of went to a place inside that said, like, this is not what you want. You got to do something different. And I explored an opportunity to do it was a real estate deal in Latin America and ended up staying there for 3 years.
It's a
So
nice deal.
it turned out to be a great deal. It turned out to be a very good deal. Not on the financial end or the investment side, but on the personal side. I didn't do the the deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was too remote and not for me. But I was inspired by Panama. That's right. That's where I went. That's where the deal was. And I was inspired by the opportunity to kind of experience life in a new way. And I hadn't left the United States alone, like, or traveled alone in my adult life, really. And I had been in my relationship for over 10 years. So since I was 19 years old. And I was just, I was blown away by the vitality, the energy, the opportunity there to do something different, to be someone different. And I had a flight, whatever day it was, and didn't go. And called my family and had them send my things down. And I was going to stay for another month, and then it became another 6 months, and then it became another year, and then it was 3 years. And throughout that time, I was really, I was gyrating, I would say, between the seductiveness of the real estate investment world down there
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to still be a part of that, and my own personal path to heal what had been kind of broken and kind of peel myself away from a career that wasn't really inspiring for me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was when it started, and it had there were a lot of great moments there, but at that moment, that chapter, it wasn't for me, and I had to really peel myself away from it. And that was a really beautiful dance, and an inspiring dance. And it took 3 years. It took 3 years of playing and making mistakes and learning about myself and going through a number of different kind of wellness journeys and spiritual journeys and um, yeah, kind of deep inner listening to come out of it after 3 years and say, you know, I'm clear. I'm clear that I don't want to be part of that world. I'm clear. I'm clear on what I want to do, and I, I, I virtually was transformed over that time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the weight I had, the unhealthy lifestyle that I had accumulated in my corporate life uh, was completely reversed, and I was lean, happy, healthy, tapped into the power of my heart, and just really felt in the flow of life. I was inspired by all of that, and that's how Life Force began. I
I mean,
wanted to
it's a
share.
great start. It's a really great start. I'm curious. I have a few questions from that.
Yeah,
One being, 2008 was a really impactful year for a lot of people, for me too. Much like 2020 kind of reset kind of thought processes and things like that. But 2008, I remember also going through kind of like I don't want to call it a crisis of existence, but just kind of a desire for something completely different and not trusting the way things were. And I wonder because I hear 2008 so many times from so many different people, at least in this age group, that it makes me wonder if maybe like there aren't like um, I don't even know if global pivot is the right word, but just like shifts in where like awareness changes. And I don't want to get too woo on that, but I feel like there's almost like so many people that went through that same time period and shifted um almost to a better place, to a different understanding. And I don't know if maybe it's a generational thing and everybody kind of hits that in their own generational time. But I wonder what your thoughts are on others kind of hitting that point and changing too.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's happening now with COVID. I
Mm-hmm.
think COVID was another moment in time where the access of the world shifted a degree or two, and things
Mm-hmm.
haven't been the same since. Um, when I left in 2009 to go to Latin America, um, you know, I think people were still very much in the thick. Well, we were still in the thick of the crisis.
Right.
And you go and become an expat, you know, and
It's very
everyone's there
brave.
to
It's
escape
very brave.
something. It's amazing, and at the same time, it's seductive because and dangerous in a way. Caveat danger, but it's a group of people who are living outside of their home
Mm-hmm.
to do something different. That can be really inspiring, and it can also be, you know, kind of a cesspool at the same
Yes.
time, right? I think that what I experienced when I was in Latin America was I experienced a lot of the positivity of that. And people
Mm-hmm.
who were really inspired to get out of the United States to do something different. Travel is a tremendous catalyst for that alone,
Mm-hmm.
whether you live somewhere else in another country or just travel there or even just travel, to a new place in your state or even in your city. It brings you outside of, it takes you outside of your routine. And I think you're able to relate to the world in different ways. So down there, I think there were people who were definitely seeing the opportunity to do something different in the crisis. And at the time, Panama was actually growing. So
Mm-hmm.
parts of Latin America, while we were in financial crisis in the United States, were growing and growing at like double digits, right? The real estate market there was incredible. The business opportunities were incredible. So it was kind of an interesting place to be. And when I came back, I reconnected with my community in the flesh. I've been staying
Mm-hmm.
in touch with people, but I launched Life Force. I wanted to share my inspiration around travel and well-being, and a lot of people I knew from the corporate world really got it, and they were still there. They were
Mm-hmm.
still grinding, um, and they really, I think, the message that there's another way, right, really resonated for them. So yeah, I think like whether people like changed their life as a result, um, or kept going on that same trajectory, there was something mentally in our unconscious that shifted and felt like there is a better way here, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not possible to go down that road. And that's actually what I do now. Is a lot of I'm revisiting and reconnecting with all my corporate and business uh, oriented community members and supporting them in that process of tapping into their purpose and their why and what gives them meaning in their work. And crisis does that, right? I mean, that's what
Right.
crisis does. Crisis shakes us up
Breaks your
and
brain. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and pressures us really to kind of look at things differently. But it's hard to break away. It's hard to break away and do something different unless it
Right.
really hurts. And that was my the grace for me, is that it hurt bad enough with the divorce and everything and the everything kind of crashing at once for me to make a change.
Right. And I do think that, those times are super hard, but they do level you up in a way. to where they kind of push you to find out what your metal is, who you really are, what you're going to bring to the world. But I think, so you talk about two groups of people, the people that you left behind and the people that you met. And the people I think that we interact with and the people that we share time with and commune with, whatever you want to call it, they impact us in so many different ways, whether it's good or bad, but it's very intentional almost how, or unintentional, how, like, when you get into a specific group of people that are on a similar experience in life, like they hit that same place and they're trying to find the same things that you're trying to find, that it kind of does kind of shift you an almost faster evolution, if you
Hmm.
will. I think,
Yeah.
and travel does that too, but I also think, and we'll get into it, but I think places are really impactful too. Because there's an energy to different places, right? So
Oh, I love
you
that.
get into your house and you get into your space and your community, that space is familiar and home. But you take me out of Colorado and suddenly the mountains aren't west and I don't know exactly where everything is, but I get, like, you put me by the ocean and the ocean has a different energy. Red Rocks has a different energy. You go to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, it has its own energy that also impacts kind of the way that you move and the way that you almost kind of take that knowledge with you, which took me down four different paths that I want to go with you. But I'm curious. I'm curious when you come back from Panama and you're talking to your corporate friends and you're explaining to them what you're doing and how you're doing it. Um, Everyone, I think, when I talk to them, is like, yes, I would love to take, a sabbatical for a year, 2 years. I'd love to change and travel and do these things. Incorporating that into a functional place, though, I think is a challenge for a lot of people. So when you're presenting this to them as kind of a path, and maybe we should dive a little bit into life force and kind of what your goals are and what you bring to the people that you commune with. What's your feelings on all of that? I mean, I know it's there's so many ideas floating in my head right now that I'm going to have a hard time articulating, because every time I think about traveling in different places, it kind of gets me going. But
Yeah. You know, um, here's the thing. I feel like we constantly have to recalibrate, constantly. So people will ask, what's my purpose? Or people will say, I'm searching for my purpose. Can I work with people or with programs that will help me find it? And I think that your purpose is constantly shifting, always. But where it comes from is a singularity. So that's why we do these practices. And I think to the person who says, look, I've got 3 kids, mortgage, family, responsibilities. I can't, I want to go become a painter and I'm an executive. I can't do that. I just can't do that. To that person, I say exactly that. Like, we need to start with the practice. We need to start each moment with that we can, right? With a practice that creates some space for us to allow what's there to bubble up. And in doing that, we can calibrate our relationship to our work and to our world. That's where we find meaning, right? It's not about taking a complete U-turn 360. I mean, that's what I had to do. That's what was necessary for me. That was my path. That's not everyone's path.
right.
I had a client I was with the other day. This is just popping in, and he is an executive at a construction uh, company, pretty big group, and we're talking about how he orients to his work and the meaning that he's finding there and the things he's stressed about, right? And he's got a family, a lot of responsibility, and he's been with this company for years, long time. So there's surely a sense of kind of commitment and loyalty and probably pressure even around staying because of that. And we finished our session, and he's like, David, if I quit my job, pack a bag with flip flops and a swimsuit and move to Hawaii, I'm gonna fucking kill you, man.
Or
And that
love you
was,
forever, one of the two.
oh yeah, exactly. Or love you forever, right? It was this idea that like, we have to like leave our job and completely start over or take these kind of drastic steps. And I don't believe that that's the case for most of us. I think that again, when we start to create spaciousness from within,
Mhm.
a space where we can listen more deeply to our heart, to our instincts, to our spirit, to the messages that are coming in, um, we can find meaning in everything that we're doing.
Mhm.
And for some of us, again, the answer might be, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. And maybe there's something else. And for others, it may be, you know what, I could just change this one piece of how I do my work. And that would totally transform my relationship to it. So, yeah.
I
Um,
think getting to that intuition is really hard though. I think for some people, they hear it, they know it, and they move on it. Other people, like I'm one of those. I have to settle myself. I've got a lot of, I don't know if you've noticed, a lot of bouncy energy. So I have to settle myself to hear the right things, to hear like my direction. And I don't know that that works for everyone. I know that, everyone's, like you said, on their own path. Um, when you were going through this kind of evolution, were you did you guide and guru are strong words, but was there someone who helped you, someone who kind of mentored you along that path, or did you just kind of follow your own intuition through it?
yeah. So two-part answer here because I like that you're bringing up this idea around intuition, and I do think it's something that is also a lifelong process that we calibrate throughout our lives. Like for me, I've really worked to develop my sense of intuition, meaning when I get a no, like physically, right, without having to think about it or intellectualize it, I go with it, and I get a
Mm-hmm.
yes, I do the same thing. It is really difficult, and it is taken now at this point 10 plus years, and I'm still nowhere even near mastering it. I don't know that anyone gets there. I think that's a life process, and I do think that's why we have teachers and practices that help us get there. But it is a lifelong process for sure. No one's just like,
There's too
we
many
can't be
voices in here.
completely instinctual. We need to be instinctual, and we also need to be intellectual.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Brain, how
Right.
the mind is also a tool, right? And we can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Um, I Before I left for Latin America, uh, I was going through the real downstroke of like, my job career is over, my marriage is ending, I gotta get out. I have to get out of Denver. Denver is where I was working at. I have to get out. My brother lived in New York at the time. It was made the most sense to just leave and get on a plane. Took a couple of days off. I got on a plane. I was probably in one of the worst emotional states I can remember in my adult life. And I end up sitting next to a man. Serendipitously, I wasn't even supposed to sit in that seat. A woman with her daughter asked if I could switch with her, who became my I would say one of my greatest spiritual teachers in my life, sitting right next to me. And I didn't even talk to him until the last 5 minutes of the flight as we were descending into New York. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't talk to the guy on the I was sitting in the middle seat. I switched with this woman again because like she wanted to be with her kid. I had my headphones on the whole flight, watching the TV, going through emotional hell. And as we're descending into New York, I turned to him and just struck up a conversation. And within the 5 minutes it took to land the plane, he had tapped into my heart and soul. I mean, it was incredible. I felt like it was an angelic intervention. And he lived in Boulder, and he was like, "Hey, I can help. Give me a call when you get home." And I did. And he was one of my great teachers for years. He worked in a non-traditional sense. He was very much like channeled. He was a counselor, but not a traditional one. So we worked on different meditation techniques. We worked on a lot of what I would call like spiritual realism, spiritual kind of pillars. I would say absolutes. So one of the things he taught me was the difference between how truth feels and how fear feels, and that anything that is coming from a place of fear is a lie. Now, being afraid is different. I don't want to confuse that for the
Right.
listeners. You know, being afraid is something that kicks in when we have a gun to our head or a tiger chasing us, right? Or, you know, we are in danger, physical danger, immediate danger. Fear is something that doesn't, according to my teacher, doesn't exist in the present moment. It only lives in things that we take with us from the past, traumas we take with us from the past, or in future anticipatory situations. It doesn't exist now.
I love
So
that.
this was a beautiful tool. And truth is something that we just tap into, right? Truth is something that, well, this is our intuition. This is part of our intuition. This is something again, and that we feel, right? We can't intellectualize truth. Truth is what's just it's real for us. So he took me through a beautiful process of learning about this, and it's been an incredible tool, and was at that time an amazing resource to move through how I was feeling about life and what felt. Hey, is this coming from a place of fear? If it is, maybe I can let it go. And
Hmm.
hey, is this coming from a place of truth? If it is, I can move into it. And it was a North Star, right? It was a stoplight.
Did you start
Red,
tapping
just
into
just
that
red and
though?
green.
No,
Maybe,
that's good. I
right?
mean, maybe no yellows. Did you
Yeah.
start tapping into that though through just listening or through intentional meditation? Like at what point? Because I think it's easy to say, okay, how do I feel about this? And then bounce it through and then, you kind of decide. But I think getting from the noise of I'm not paying attention to I understand truth and direction and what's right for me, those are big leaps. So
This is the value for me, the value of having a teacher. And it doesn't have to be a guru. It could be someone you trust. It could be a friend even. But without a doubt, the value of having, for me, a mentor in that way really helped. So I checked in with him a lot. I was like, okay, I'm not sure how to feel here. And he never gave me the answers. He just gave me what I needed to feel into the right answer, right? The support I needed, the guidance I needed. Um, and like I said, this is a lifelong process. I'm still like, whoop, whoop, like I'm feeling something, it's coming up. I'm like, am I like the fear is so, there's such a deep well of this within us that it's hard sometimes to identify whether we're
right.
coming from fear or truth. It is a very simple process, but it can be subtle, right? And so it's a process. I think a teacher really helps. I think a practice really helps. The practice is huge. Creating the space, slowing down. When we're reactive and we're just bouncing off stuff, a lot of that is coming from those instinctual places.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this is a whole other podcast in itself. And you know, I'm no Joe Dispenza when it comes to really understanding neurobiology and the deep intricacies of meditation. But you know, we program our mind, right? We program our mind and body when we believe the fear, and when we, for example, have a trauma, right, that lives in our body, and we revisit that trauma over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And the old saying, the way you fire is the way you wire. We just get used to that kind of reactivity. So the space is super important, and that's why meditation is so powerful, right? It enables us to create the space to be able to feel for a moment, slow things down, so that we're not reacting all the time.
Do you have a favorite type of meditation?
I have a practice that I've kind of developed that's amalgamation of a bunch of different things. I love movement. I have a lot of practices that I really like, and as far as meditation goes, but I would say paramount, probably to all, is the power of nature. To me, connecting with nature and I have some kind of specific practices I do to do that, is incredibly powerful. I mean, this is us. The nature is us
Mhm.
without all the intellectualized, you
Without the
know,
tech. Yep.
without the tech, without the trauma, without the, nature is balance just in her, in all the ways that she just exists and continues to roll on. And she's traumatized, right? The earth is traumatized right now,
Hmm.
but, and probably out of balance. But when you come into the micro and you narrow it down and you look at a tree or a blade of grass or the clouds, I mean, it finds a way to be in balance. So I find nature so inspiring and so powerful. And I would say, we've done over 100 retreats all over the world. And the ones that were deep immersions into nature were by far, for me, the most uh, transformational, transcendental uh,
Hmm.
experiences.
I think there is something to that. I was in Santa Barbara last week with my mom, and we did like wine tours, and we're talking about the wine and we're talking about the grapes and how the grapes and the land have a history together, and kind of evolve the flavor and the story and and all of the components. And I think humans are very much the same with that, right? So, in your space, you kind of evolve with your stories and your different experiences. But when you take that and you move that to a different place, like places, to me, I agree with you, have a very strong and intense kind of impact uh on, at least on me. When I mean, I can go, into a city and feel the city. I can go into the mountains and feel, like, you feel that calm, you that kind of I don't, the sense of belonging almost. And then, you go to the ocean, and that's a completely different feeling. And in the ocean and in the water and, near fire, it's interesting to me how the elements can so intensely impact, you know, uh, soul is the only word that's coming to mind, but that whole sense of life, if it makes sense.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting that you brought up your wine tour. Our last retreat that we just got back from, it's only been 2 weeks, was in Sicily.
Oh,
And
it's my people.
side note, amazing. And I came away from it and we enjoyed wine while we were there, of course. Uh, I came back from it thinking and telling my partner here, like, there's something so cool about the study of wine and like, like I almost want to like have like a side gig as a
Right.
sommelier. Why? Because, but just like you said, in one single grape or in a harvest from one year, there is so much. There's geography, there's culture, there's environment. It is everything that's the dynamics of place all bottled up into one glass or one grape. And I find that to be fascinating. That's it, that it's embodied, right? It's a physical way to touch and experience and taste all the beautiful components of that area, be them
Hmm.
physical, cultural, experiential, etc. Right. So I was really turned on by that when we were there. And we chose Sicily for the retreat because of the pace of life there. And this, what I feel is a very special signature to that place, which is that people are just, there's just a carefree, slow paced, beautiful lifestyle. And, it's not a blue zone, but it should be, because I think it's very similar. And
Hmm.
statistics aside,
Hmm.
based on what the blue zones are composed of, right? Socially and culturally and physically, like the environment, Sicily, and there's one in Sardinia, which is just right around the corner.
Hmm.
But we chose Sicily for that reason. And I really noticed that when we were there, we wanted to deepen into, a sense of rest, a sense of eating our food slowly, enjoying long lunches, taking time to connect with one another and really have a nice conversation without feeling rushed and not working too hard either. Like we didn't start our classes sometimes until 10 in the morning because we just wanted to give people space, right?
Hmm.
And slow things down. And it was an embodied experience. And I have amazing pictures from our group of, someone just like in the middle of the day, she's like cozied up, and we've had a beautiful villa there. She's cozied up in one of the little rooms by the fireplace, like reading a book, and that's just amazing to see that happening. Like, when you're with a group, especially, but even on retreat, I don't see that often. People are out, well, let's go to the beach. Let's go like
Right.
do
It's
this.
very much go, 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 go.
She's just
Right.
taking it. She's reading her book. She's like, I'm going to read my book and take a nap. And I have this great picture of her.
That's
Or,
beautiful.
just like these long lunches, and people are just like after lunch would finish, just sitting there for another 30 minutes or an hour to talk. And I absolutely agree with you in that place has such a beautiful genius to it. There's a
Hmm.
genius that lives in the places we go. And that's this like like this, and that's why I love nature, right? And that's why I love retreats, is that we have this exchange, this conversation with the genius of these places. And I don't mean intellect. I don't mean a genius that's intellectual. I mean a genius that lives in like the trees and lives in the old cobblestone streets and lives in the high paced like lights in
Hmm.
Tokyo, city lights. And there's something there. And we get an opportunity to relate to it and relate to ourselves in an entirely new way when we travel. And I love that part of it. It takes the work and the practice, and the meaning and the search for meaning, which is what I focus on, to a whole other level,
Hmm.
and gives us a really cool opportunity to see it through a different set of eyes.
I think that's beautiful, one. But two, I think that, a place like Sicily, especially Sicily, when you're talking about, you know, the sense in the body and really in tuning with the area and the location. Sicilians are one of those places where they live forever. They live, they're all Centaurians. Um, but the food is enriched, and you've also got this experience of they're one of the most invaded points on the planet for whatever reason, right? So you've got this imbuing of like every culture that's kind of landed on Sicily before they've gone on to do their other things. But I'm curious, one of the things that I've really been like diving into in the last probably 5 years is the mental health, the physical health, the food, and really trying to extend out mental clarity and understanding as long as possible. And so I'm wondering too, when you were talking about Panama too, you were talking about how you had that shift from, this unhealthy lifestyle into a healthier lifestyle. How much of the food do you think plays into all of this awareness as well?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that in Sicily, we had at least two people that I can remember that were gluten intolerant, and when they're home, they don't eat any gluten at all, and they ate pasta every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a lot just in that, we have lost a connection to our food, and that's the most important thing. Um, our nutritional needs change. They may change every day. They probably do.
Mm-hmm.
They surely change as we move through life and we get older. Um, and so like that's a process of like, what do we eat, that I think is constantly changing, and not really the most important piece. The most important piece to me is, how are you connecting with your food? And I think the reason that a lot of us are sick is that we're totally disconnected from our food. And that is like a whole other tangent, as far
Right.
as we're so disconnected, and you have monocropping, and then you have glyphosate. I mean, and all the things that we're actually eating food that makes us sick because of the level of disconnection to collectively
Mm-hmm.
to our food sources. So that's what I noticed in Sicily, is that everything was local. They had ancient grains. We ate ancient grains, that were made into pasta, that were, one of like 10 grains just from this small little region in Sicily that God knows how old they were, maybe 1,000 years old, who knows, this heirloom seed, right? No glyphosate, farmed by maybe a family, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's been doing it for hundreds of years. And all that translates into, the energy we get from it. And I think the health benefits that come from it. So same goes for wherever we are. Like, when we go to Costa Rica, which is another blue zone, and that's like one of my favorite destinations now for retreats in Latin America. We eat the local food, and it's not just that it's a healthy kind of food. Let's say like a
Right.
clean fish or a mango. It's that it has all the energy inside of it of like a local farmer who cared for this plant, who gave it good water, who looked after it, you know, and it didn't travel in an airplane and then a cargo ship and then a truck and then sit on it and wrapped in plastic and et cetera, et cetera. Like
Mm-hmm.
those things mean so much, I think. And I definitely believe as I'm getting older that diet and what you eat and how you choose to eat is huge in maintaining, like you said, clarity and just a general good health. General
Mm-hmm.
good health, like food is like I would say the majority of the equation there.
I
More
agree.
so even than like heavy exercise as you get older, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, the health of the food, not the healthy food, is
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah, the system it comes from. That's I think yeah the
The
important part.
system's broken a little bit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, big time.
Um, so I do want to talk about Life Force and kind of how you aggregate your trips and how you curate them, for different groups and where you go and kind of the experiences that people can experience. Because I feel like to your point, we could have 4 or 5 podcasts on each of these side projects. But I want to make sure that we talk about this because this is really interesting to me too. And I think there's a lot of choices out there right now as far as wellness retreats. It seems like it's this new culture that, and I don't know if new is the right word, but this culture where there's, so many options to go on a retreat and do a few things and maybe do yoga while you're there. I want to dive into Life Force and more about your philosophy and how you curate those.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, my philosophy now, and this is, you talked about uh, earlier these moments in time, like the financial crisis, where we kind of question what we're doing. I had that happen again in during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a reiteration for me around what we're doing with Life Force. And we had a lot of fun up to 2019. We did a ton of trips. They were all wellness adventures, and I was never dogmatic. I was always like, let's work with different yoga teachers. We'll bring a great yoga teacher in. We'll bring a great chef in. We'll go to really cool places. They were very much like a balance of mindfulness, well-being, and adventure. I mean, it was really about, a big part of it was harnessing the energy and all the beautiful things to learn from the places that we traveled to. Um, COVID came around, and for me, I had a very pragmatic kind of orientation to it, and I'm not a necessarily pragmatic person. And I felt like there's more that can be done here with travel. There's more that can be done with retreats. If you have the opportunity to bring people together and create these really healing spaces, create these spaces that are so meditative and give people an opportunity to see the world in a new light. Like use that, right? And again, I'm not dogmatic, and I think that some retreats are very much focused on like, you know, one theme or one tangent or one discipline, right? I'm not like that. And I think that, but I am, and what we have done since COVID is really tried to harness the power of these trips and the power of travel and the power of uh, creating space through mindful and contemplative practice to support people in their journey around creating meaning in their lives And I say this on a bigger level, and this was part of the kind of reiteration from COVID, that I say meaning, and we implement these things to help people tap into more meaning, because I believe we're in a time on this planet where we're at a crossroads. And if we don't figure out collectively how to put life first, how to put our connection to life first, before money, before success and celebritydom, before materialism, right? And I know that these are part of life, and I'm not judging, right, here, but I believe that there is a pecking order. There's an order of importance, that we
Right.
are at a crossroad here, and we need to collectively, and as obviously, and as individuals, tap into a better way. Like you said, the systems are broken,
Mm-hmm.
and the the opportunity that I felt arise coming out of COVID was, how can we? And this was what came up within me. It's not that I saw there was an opportunity out there and said, let's move in that direction. This is how I felt. It was very much authentic for me, and a truth for me was that, how can I deepen my sense of meaning, connection to my work, and make the world a better place? And if I can do that, right,
Mm-hmm.
can all the people I'm working with do that? So can an executive who has a business that she's managing that has X amount of impact, monetarily, economically, socially, environmentally, create a sense of meaning, deeper meaning to her work and her world, and that trickle in and impact and affect her approach to work and her approach to her creative expression?
Mm-hmm.
And if we could all do that, I mean, I think we'd be living in a different world. And I do want to also say that this is happening. This is absolutely happening in the corporate world. This is absolutely happening um, across a number of different industries. People are leaders, risk takers, are starting to take those chances and say, okay, like, money isn't the only metric of success. There are other metrics here, right? And I think meaning is the most important. I think if you can find meaning, that's your metric, right? And then everything else flows from there. And I'm simplifying it a little bit, but you have to, like, that's the
You have to
first
start
and most
somewhere.
important step. You got to start somewhere.
Right.
Then you can bring in an intellectualize. Okay, we're on purpose. How do we manage our P&L, and how do we manage this and that? But yeah,
I think there's a lot
that's,
of truth to that. I think, being in the corporate space is, there's a balance, I think, in my mind, and I'm always looking for a balance. But in one hand, you have the corporate world. We have to have the things, right? The world needs to go. But on the other side, the connections, the people, the relationships, the community is such a big piece of that. You talk a lot about, well, you don't, but in general, you hear a lot about corporate culture and driving a corporate culture to the right metrics to get the right things, to get your EPI or whatever the whatever that thing is. There's all of the things that businesses are doing to do the right things, but really diving deeper, I think, is an element that's missing. I think it's something that, there's an opportunity to connect the things so that people aren't necessarily striving for the effort, but not the reward, if that makes sense. The reward isn't always the dollar. I mean, it sounds like it's the dollar when you're talking to stakeholders, but for that effort, what do you get out of that, and how do you translate that? I think is really important.
it's the short-term reward. And I think that, what meditation and mindfulness practices do is they enable, like, the human spirit and the mind body even to progressively detach from the short high and start to cultivate again a sense of balance, right? And it's all about balance. We're not living in a balanced way. The economy isn't balanced, right? The systems aren't balanced, and that's why we have the discord. We have
Hmm.
political discord, cultural discord. We have tremendous economic discord, right? And this is all because things are out of balance. And so, yeah, it's about thinking long term, I think, and we have to slow down to do that. When we're just rushing from one thing to the next and we're feeling pressure, and this is a human thing. Like in the wrong, no one's wrong here. Like this is just how we've evolved. This is the storyline we've been on collectively. But now we're at a point in that story where it's like people are starting to see, leaders are starting to see, and we'll just talk about, leaders, let's say in the corporate space. You look at BlackRock, right? Larry Fink. I'm just reading an article about him in The Economist, right? And what he's done, he's put his neck on the line to support the environmental social governance kind of approach to how he manages his fund, right? And taking those considerations into uh, how they run their fund and their money, right? So it's happening, but it's a process and it's a practice. And so, what I have done with my work is I've kind of segregated it into doing mentorships and one-on-one work with executives, business owners, creatives, leaders, um, doing private uh, events and retreats with corporate groups, and then also creating a couple of trips per year for groups of leaders and executives and seekers and creatives to come together, individuals to all come together in one
Hmm.
place. So that's like what we just did in Sicily. And so next year, we'll have a handful of those opportunities, which are the, individuals coming together collectively to create new community around business and mindfulness and conscious leadership. And then we'll do our private work with clients and with the corporate partners that we have.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this a long time, in different iterations, of course, but the community that you've built, I have to imagine, has been pretty extensive. Do you all stay in touch? Or one of my largest frustrations about traveling in groups is you meet new wonderful people and you become best of friends for 10 days, and then you go back into life and that's it. Like you don't talk to them anymore. Like you never see them. They're on the other side of the planet. So I've always been really fascinated and curious about how to contain and keep the community.
Yeah, it's hard. That's for sure. 100% we keep in touch. Uh, I mean, in different degrees. So the trip that we just finished, I had a woman who was on one of my first trips in 2014 on that trip. That was 10
That's
years.
awesome.
She lives in
That's
New
the way it
York.
should be.
Yeah, and I haven't seen her in a long time, but it came up on our radar, and um, that was amazing. And she's not even an active client. She's not an active client. She was just someone who I really appreciate as far as her business acumen and what she's done with her business. And anyways, so there's that, and then there's I think there's social media is a wonderful platform in ways to stay connected.
Mhm.
Um, and the beauty of my work is that we're creating opportunities for people to really connect in person, and that's the beauty of the retreat side of what I do. It's like there's not a better way to connect, in my opinion, than to be able to drop everything you're doing, be present, get out into a beautiful place with new and old friends, and enjoy a week together doing things in a healthy way. So yeah, it's I would definitely say that over the lifespan of Life Force and the newest iterations of Life Force that have happened over the last couple of years, If anything, I've seen uh, uh, more people coming together
Hmm.
around around what we're doing, and I think also just being called to explore the role that meaning or the search for meaning can play in their lives and in the world. It is a thing. I mean, I see it. I really feel like, there's a lot of us out there now who are just, how can we not see, you know, how badly I think the world and and humanity needs and nature needs us to look at these things. So yeah, I felt really good about our community, and it's always the community's the best part for
Hmm.
what it's worth.
I think that's why I
Um,
started the channel, was to really the community around. I mean, I just feel like getting closer to people is the answer. Like building that, and not even network. I hate the word network, but building a group of people that are your tribe, and feeling that space within your tribe, and sharing that and growing with that tribe. As you start to tell your stories and you share your stories with different people, you kind of become part of their story, right? So the more stories we combine to, I think, gets us to that kind of esoteric place of, we are all of the same mind. We are all of the same sense, if you will. So I think it's a beautiful place to be. But
yeah, the conversation, and I just you know want to add that, like, the more conversations we have, and I say that figuratively and really, like me and you are having,
mhm,
like, we're friends now. Like,
mhm,
come up to Lions, come visit, and maybe you'll come on a trip, and we'll be in touch, and we're connecting intellectually and sharing ideas and thoughts and values. I mean, this is so important now, these
mhm,
conversations.
I agree.
And it is such a great way to keep our connection and alive and grow. I think like you said, our tribe, our community, to
Mhm,
continue to talk to people. We don't talk to people if we're shut down, then we so limit, um, our opportunities to grow in community. And, things are polarized in this world. So it's great that you're doing this, and, like, it's always nice to have new conversations. And I feel like conversations just in general, and that idea of just engaging with the world, even figuratively in conversation,
mhm.
is, yeah, it's huge to
Yeah, expand your map quite a bit. So tell
Mhm.
me what's on tap for you for the next 6 months or so, and how people reach you and find you and connect with you, because I feel like that's really important. I mean, I could talk to you all day long and ask you 97 more questions, but I feel like we should do this part first.
Yeah. Um, we have a trip coming up, which I'm going to announce shortly here, in Nozara, Costa Rica, which is a blue zone
Mhm,
and incredible spot. So that's something that is, a little bit more public facing, just for the listeners, and something that people can explore if they're interested um, in doing a trip or getting involved in our travel side. Um, Going to also be doing I don't know that it'll happen in the next 6 months, but somewhere around there, something local here in Lyons. It'll be 2 days, and based on conscious leadership, for the business community here in the greater Denver area.
mhm,
And I'm working with a business prof who I've been lecturing. I'm lecturing his class at the Lead School of Business at the University of Colorado Boulder. So that'll be a lot of fun. That's going to be a local experience, and we're going to
how
tap
many
in.
people are you going to have within that group?
It'll be a small group. We'd like to keep things intimate, so we'll probably cap it at 30, and that's a
Right.
local thing. My international trips are smaller than that. They're about
Mhm,
half that size. Um, about 10 to 15 people. Uh, yeah, we're going to explore. He's going to bring a bit more teeth to the business side and the application, and I'm going to work on kind of the leadership end and cultivating some of these practices and exploring that idea of space and deep listening. So we're really excited about that. We always run a fall trip, but that's not 6 months from now. That's down. That's down.
Right.
Yeah. For the immediate future, those two things, and you know, have a couple spaces open for mentorships. So that's something to note. And yeah,
It's beautiful. I love it. I love all of it. I think you definitely have tapped into the right headspace and the right time. And I think it's such a treat to be able to connect with people while they're tapping into themselves. I'm a little bit jealous that you get to do that. But I think it's beautiful. I love it. And if people want to find you online, you've got the socials, you've got the
yeah,
website.
yeah. So we have two websites, and two companies that I founded. Lifeforceproject.com, which is our travel oriented page, and then Well Designed at welldesigncollective.com is my business mentorship site. So you can learn more about what I'm doing on either of those.
Mhm.
And our handles for social media are almost all at Life Force Project. So you can find us on
Awesome. And I'll
Instagram
put those in the show notes too, so everyone can find them quickly and easily.
and LinkedIn. Look me up on LinkedIn. That's always a good one. I'm spending more and more time there as we engage with the business community. So there's that. And you can always email me too at david@lifeforceproject.com.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, David, you are an amazing soul, and I have plans for many more podcasts with you. So I can already think of like
Great.
3 or 4 directions we can go with them. So
Yeah,
so
let's run with some of the tangents on the next one.
let's do it. Let's do it. I'm definitely in. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, David. And we'll definitely reach out again.
That was great. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.